Hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact video series. My name is Ryan Duffy and I'm the director of the museum, and this week we're going to talk about a particular piece that will be featured in our next upcoming exhibit on the historic Batavia Cemetery, which will talk about everything related to the cemetery, but also the process of dealing with the death of loved ones and friends. So this week we're going to talk about one of those particular items and a very unique item from our clothing collection, and that is the dress behind me here, and that is a mourning dress, mourning, from 1863 that we will be featuring as part of the exhibit. So I'm going to go through a little bit about the history of the dress itself and mourning during the time period when this was made, and how people mourn the loss of loved ones. So as I mentioned, this dress was made all the way back in 1863 for a woman of the upper class, and we do know that as because the dress is entirely hand-stitched, which would be very costly back in 1863, and only someone of some means would be able to afford to make a dress like this. Now it is made out of a silk fabric with a twill cotton interior, and it does include two black velvet armbands across each arm, which gives it away as a mourning dress versus some other kind of formal wear. Now, mourning during the 19th century was much different than it is today, and this went doubly for women, especially widows, which we can maybe assume the woman who had this dress made was mourning the loss of her husband, or possibly a son, or maybe some other relative who may have died in the Civil War, though we don't know that for sure. Now, a mourning period during the 19th century, particularly this time period, was very long by today's standards, and most women who became widows would mourn their husband's loss up to 2.5 years, and some even longer, all the way through the rest of their lives. One famous example of that is Queen Victoria, who mourned the loss of Prince Albert until she passed away over 40 years later. So mourning periods could last decades, if not just years. Now, the woman would wear this anytime out in public, and she would include a veil to hide her face, and would also include a black handkerchief, which was used to wipe away any tears. Now, mourning dresses evolved a little bit over time, as we do have some that are a little bit later in the 19th century, and there's a little bit more decorative pieces to them, but they still all were meant to do the same thing, and showing the loss that these people suffered, and to pay respects to those that they lost for extended periods of time. And really, these dresses came to exemplify their grief and how we came to associate black with death and funerals and mourning. So this is a very unique piece to that, and a very good example of mourning in the 19th century. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact video series and learned a little bit more about our 1863 mourning dress here and mourning overall during that time period. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up or even subscribe, and check out all the other videos in this playlist, as we're very close to 150. Plus, we have all our concerts and guest speaker series on there as well, so there's a wealth of material out there to go and watch on the local history of Genesee County and Western New York. But the best way to learn more about everything that we show in these videos is to stop by the museum and see for yourself, as we'll be able to share even more information, and you can see a lot of these artifacts up close and personal, other than just what's shown in these videos. And if you really find an interest in local history and what we do here at the museum, in supporting us, the best way to do that is to become a member of the museum, as it's very affordable and allows us to do a lot of these things that we show off in these videos, and create even more programming for the public at large.